Veritas Aquitus by Bones Boy 15, Chapter 9. Friend that is a girl. Man, this is some nice digs, Sun said as he bounced on Naruto's bed. He looked over at his fellow blonde with an arched brow. You sure I can sleep here? Dude. Naruto put his hands on his chest, winced for a brief moment, and then grinned at the faunus. Mikasa is su casa. That's his way of saying our place is yours, Sasuke said while he set Amaterasu on his desk and began to pull things from his dresser. My turn for a first shower. All right, Your Majesty, Kurama drawled as Sasuke dug into the bathroom. He rested Rikudo up against the wall and sat on his bed. He arched a brow when Sun pulled out his weapons, Ruji Bang and Jingo Bang, in their bow staff from to do the same. Ah, another user of the mighty stick, Kurama said as he admired the two weapons. He held his hand out. May I? Sun grinned. Only if I can see yours. Of course. Kurama grabbed Rikudo and tossed it over to Sun, while the blonde faunus tossed his shotgun nunchuck staff in return. Kurama investigated the red and gold staff with the critical eye. A good solid build, with two of the shotguns facing out while the other rests within, able to be flipped so as not to require immediate reloading. Sun likewise twisted the pull of Kurama's ring staff and examined the spear form that the dangling knives made, similar to the one of my friend's, Jian, but much easier to balance in one hand. That means your semblance requires at least one hand to use. Very good observation. Kurama praised his fellow faunus with a smile as he flipped Bang and Jinju Bang over. Ah, I see it can become a three-section staff as well as the nunchuck shotguns. Multiple uses for different scenarios. I assume you've trained to use them all. Heck yeah, man. Sun grinned back as he reverted the spear to the monk-like staff it was before. Do you fight with this mode? Sometimes, but it's mostly to put others at ease. Of the three forms Rikudo has, that is by far the deadliest. Kurama had a secretive smile on his face as the two faunus returned the weapons in their hands to the rightful owner. Geez, Kurama, you're almost as bad as Ruby with her weapon fetish, Naruto said with a chuckle. He winced and held his side as he rested against the foot of his bed. Ow! That dude hit hard. Even when I was at 8 times durability, he managed to fracture my ribs. You should go to the school nurse, Haku suggested and made Naruto shiver. The two teammates of the whiskered blonde rolled their eyes at his blatant fear of hospitals. Kurama shook his head. He should be fine in the morning, if not a little sore. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger, Naruto quipped with a painful laugh. Ow, hurts to laugh. I can sleep on the floor if you want, little dude, Sun said with a small look of concern. No man, I'll be fine. I've slept in worse conditions before. Naruto waved off the faunus' worry as he tore the remains of his shirt and jacket off. The whiskered blonde clucked in disappointment. Man, I almost made it a year before my clothes got destroyed. Would have been a new record. This is why I dress casual, Sun said with a grin as he pulled his gauntlets off and set them beside Rujibang and Jingubang. He slipped his shirt and shoes off before he lounged on the bed with his hands behind his head. So, anyone else get weirded out by that Ospin guy? He seemed off. Prof O? Naruto asked as he tossed his ruined clothes in the garbage and took his combat sandals off. Nah, he's always like that. What'd he ask you? Basically what I knew and why I snuck over to Vale before the rest of the haven came, Sun said with a shrug. Figured it wouldn't hurt to drop your name. Good call. Profo is way too smart to try and keep secrets from, Naruto said with a nod. He looked up at Sasuke as Sasuke came out in his evening yakata. I'm next. The whiskered blonde hopped to his feet and rushed off to the bathroom while Sasuke walked over to his corner of the room and dumped his dirty clothes in the bin. So what did Naruto mean by 8 times durability? Sun asked in confusion. I mean, I know his semblance increases his strength and stamina, but durability? Like all of us, Naruto's semblance is a reflection of his very soul, of who he is, Kurama explained as he gestured to Sasuke, who had picked up his copy of Ninjas of Love while he laid on his bed. My partner's very quick and ruthless in battle, sharp and deadly like his sword. His semblance, Kirin, reflects this and gives him control over lightning itself. One of our old teachers had a similar semblance and helped refine Sasuke so that it did not need to occur just as a giant lightning bolt comes from the sky. As for myself, I have the traits of a fox, a mischief maker in ancient human mythos known for stealing and creating lies. Kurama said with a gesture to his tail and a smirk on his face. I was raised in a community filled with gossip and retail, so I know both best. To give and to take are my bread and butter. To eavesdrop is my own bliss. I can locate anyone by their aura, making it easy to hide from them, and transfer aura from opponents to myself, or from myself to others. That must take a lot of aura to do, Sun said in mild surprise. Karma nodded with a smile. It does. Comparing my reserves to yours, you could say I am an ocean to your pond. Just a pond? Sun asked with a pout. Karma chuckled. Yes, you, Sasuke and Haku, have large reserves. This is true, but there are only 4 people on campus whose reserves can even come near my own. Aspen, Good Witch, PJ, and Naruto. PJ? Sun asked. He's a friend. You'll probably meet him soon if you continue to hang around, Kurama said with a gesture of his hand. I don't know why his reserves are so large, but I assume that to be due to his heritage. It would make sense, Haku said. His son looked at him and Haku gained a light smile. PJ's real name is John Art. I don't know what that means, Sun said dryly. Of course you don't, Haku sighed and shook his head. Oh well, hopefully it'll make itself clear soon. Anyway, back to the subject at hand, Kurama said. He nodded at Haku. Our frosty friend has a nifty short-distance teleportation ability and has recently developed a spying method with our help to keep our goofball of a leader in check. It reflects his teachings at Fog Academy World, right? Yes, Hago nodded. Subterfuge and counter-espionage was the focus of Fog's teachings. Cool, Sun said with an impressed grin on his face. So, what's with Naruto semblance? Sasuke sighed and set down his book. Naruto semblance has been described by a village elder in Kon as the personification of a flame's will, hence why we call it the Will of Fire. Naruto is hard-headed and stubborn to a fault. When he sets his mind to something, he would always find a way to get something done, even if it would get him in trouble. He's like an eternal flame, unable to be doused by any water, blown out by any wind, or covered by dirt. His will is so great that not even broken bones or injuries can hold him back from doing what he believes in right. Kurama said fondly. A small smile was on his face as he stared off at nothing. Naruto's semblance reflects his never say die attitude and gives him the strength he needs to move even a mountain, the stamina to outlast a rampaging bull, and the ability to survive a building's collapse. The damn thing is always on, too, so his body is naturally twice as strong as any of ours. Nothing short of an atomizing attack would possibly defeat him. What about you? Sun asked. You could just drain his aura reserves, right? Kurama shook his head. It would take too long. I would lose inevitably if it came down to that. Naruto will fight an enemy not to the end of his aura reserves, but to his last breath. Even if his arms had been wrecked, his legs cut off, and his spine broken, he would still try to gnaw you to death. Damn! Sun blinked in surprise. He sat back. So he's like a one-man machine. Naruto's strength comes from not himself, but his friends, Sasuke said. He smirked in amusement. Idiot doesn't think he can stand on his own, nor does he want to. He's the type of guy that wants to be everyone's best friend. Hard to believe I used to hate his and the fox's guts. Screw you too, Uchiha, Kurama said with a smirk. He looked at Sun and nodded. And just know this, as long as you stay loyal to Remnant and a good friend, Naruto will never let you down or leave you for dead. Leave who for dead? Naruto asked as he walked out of the bathroom with a towel around his neck and running shorts on. He was rubbing water out of his ear and looked around as his 4 friends gave him grins. What? Why are you guys looking at me like that? We were just talking about your new girlfriend, Kurama said with a smirk as he got up and grabbed his clothes from his dresser. He walked into the bathroom and before he shut the door, grinned at his team leader. We don't want to see you mess this up. It is your first girlfriend after all. What? Hey, I've had a girlfriend before, Kurama, Naruto yelled as the door slammed shut. His eye twitched in annoyance and he glared at the other 3 as they laughed at him. You guys can all suck the biggest of dicks. Naruto huffed as he walked to the lunchroom the next day, dressed back in his modified school uniform. Behind him were his 3 teammates, while Sun had gone back into Vale to entertain himself while he waited for their classes to end. Naruto wanted to go with him and skip class, but Haku reminded him that any potential tomfoolery could ruin his chances at getting into the vital tournament. Sun, learning that they hadn't been allowed to participate yet, agreed with Naruto's partner. I came here not to hang out, but to scope out, man. Learning what I have, I got to prepare myself for our fights. Sun's words brought excitement and anticipation to Naruto, who agreed to meet up after classes. It wasn't until after the first class that Naruto realized what he'd agreed to, and now he was in a funk. I thought Sun's advice was very useful, Kurama said as he reached down and patted his tail, now wrapped around his waist. The two faunas had discussed the tail care vigorously that morning, and both walked away with plans to research a better way to clean their beloved animal appendages. I didn't know that the baby shampoo I used was tested on animals. Why is that even a thing? Just because it doesn't harm animals doesn't mean it doesn't harm humans or even faunas for that matter. It just goes to show how while a person can be smart, people are dumb. Sasuke shrugged. He noticed Naruto's funk and rolled his eyes. Are you still miffed that Wukong ran off to have fun while you are stuck in class? Yes, Naruto admitted without a shame as he turned around and pouted at his teammates. Port was as boring as usual, and Guguch wanted us to actually learn today instead of spar. I was so pumped to fight someone today. We can spar after class with Sun, Haku said with a sigh. Besides, Professor Goodwitch said that our days ends early because she and Professor Ospen are showing a few new students around, and there's that. Naruto threw his arms into the air. I just got used to Peach's obsession with plants when four more potential weirdos are coming. Come on, what are you yelling about now, Uzumaki? Wise asked as she and the other girls on Team Ruby met up with them outside of the lunchroom. Naruto stole a glance at Yang, who grinned and winked at him before he looked back at the white-haired girl. The new teachers, Naruto said with a small frown. It took a while to get used to some of the antics of the old ones, but now we have new weirdos coming. At least life's never boring around here, Yang said as she hung back and grinned at him. So, have any interesting dreams last night, Whisker Boy? Naruto grinned back at her, though it seemed a bit uneasy as he pushed lunchroom doors open and made his way to the lunch line. Well, I was swimming in a never-ending broth of ramen when I was joined by a figure of beauty. Oh, really? Wait for it. It could be a woman made from noodles, Kurama interjected. Team Ruby looked at the flushed Whisker Boy as he glared at the red-themed member of Team Nox. One time! That was one time! Kurama, Naruto quickly hissed. He scowled as he got in the lunch line and grabbed a tray to fill with bowls upon bowls of ramen. On his way to the usual table where his team, Ruby and Juniper, sat to eat, Naruto turned around and grinned at Yang behind him. So far, only half of my dreams is coming true today. Yang grinned back at him and tapped his nose with a finger. Well, play your cards right, and maybe you'll find yourself in heaven. You guys are making me lose my lunch, and I haven't even started to eat yet, Ruby complained as she sat down across from John. What lunch? John asked with a laugh. He set his sandwich down and pointed at Ruby's tray. All you have there are 3 cartons of milk and 10 foods that don't fall under anything other than the sweet category. You should eat healthier, Ruby, Pyrrha said after she had looked up and greeted the others. She had a well-balanced meal on her plate and was currently enjoying the salad. Yeah, you should have some of Ren's pancakes, Nora said. Ren shook his head and slapped Nora's hand as she tried to get the maple syrup. The hammer-wielding girl pouted at Ren, who merely sipped from his coffee mug. I drink milk. Ruby dangled her open carton of milk. Besides, if anyone's eating habits are unhealthy, it's Uzumaki's. Wise cut in as she gave the whiskered blonde a look of disgust while he went to town on his third bowl. How does he eat so much of that garb? Haku had moved so fast it was hard to tell if he used his semblance or not to close the distance between himself and Wise so that he may cover her mouth with his hands. Don't diss the ramen, Sasuke warned while the Harris struggled under Haku's grasp. Blake arched her brow and took a bite of her tuna casserole. Why does he eat so much of it? It's the food of Om. Blessed be he who crafts the remnant. Bessie he who crafted remnant with his divine ketchup and napkins, Naruto said after he set his bowl to the side and pulled the fourth in front of him. He gave us this amazing gift to use after we acknowledged his greatness and showed him our gratitude. His prophet, the wise Mito Uzumaki, was the first to drink from the broth of the holy noodles, and happiness did she know before evermore. Naruto bowed his head and clapped his hands together. Thank you, Om, for this wondrous meal I am about to eat. May your rule be eternal and peaceful. The two teams stared at Naruto as he began to eat once more, while Haku, Sasuke, and Kurama seemed to ignore his preaching. And that is why we don't diss the ramen or try to get him off of his addiction, Kurama said dryly as he picked up his ham sandwich. The nut job could flip his lid again. Sasuke shivered and rubbed his arms. The sirens, the screams, I can still hear them. Kurama consoled his partner with a rub on the back, while the other eight glanced nervously at Naruto. The whiskered blonde was eating contentedly, and his eyes were closed as he did. Just what happened exactly? Ruby dared to ask. Our village ran out of ramen. Kurama said simply while Sasuke gained horrified wide eyes. Kurama shrugged. All I know was that I was right next to Naruto when he found out, and then I woke up a few days later in the hospital. No idea what happened, and based on the trembling form of my partner, I don't want to know. He went ballistic, Sasuke mumbled. He took out our village's best, and even a few more experienced students from Vacuo's Huntsman Academy were injured when they tried to restrain him. In the end, it fell on the shoulders of our academy headmaster to stop him. Buildings were in ruins, and many were mildly injured from Naruto's reaction. Shortly afterwards, a law dedicated solely ensuring that such an event never occurred again had started. Wow, it sounds like Yang when someone damaged her hair, Ruby said softly. Yang gave her little sister a dirty look. I'm not that bad. Tell that to the three guys you sent to the hospital after they accidentally cut off one of your hairs off. Ruby said dryly. Blake gave her partner a pointed stare. Didn't you do something similar to some Ursa during our initiation? Yang chuckled sheepishly and poked her fingers together. Well, you have to have pride in something about yourself, right? The table was quiet before Haku sighed and sat back down in his seat on the other side of Naruto while Yang sat on his other side. And now you two are going to start dating. What is that supposed to mean? Yang groaned while Naruto choked on his ramen. Naruto forced himself to swallow what was in his mouth, lest he waste the blessed noodles he loved so dearly. Who said anything about dating? It was one kiss. Naruto argued quickly and loudly. He shrunk down slightly when Yang's gaze fell on him. I mean, not that there's anything wrong with us dating, but it was just a kiss of gratitude, wasn't it? Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. Yang simply answered with a smile. She leaned next to him so that their hips and shoulders touched. Besides, you'd kill to have a girlfriend that looked this good, right? Yes, Naruto said uncertainly. Thought so. Yang grinned and went back to eating her lunch, while Naruto stared at her for another moment before he looked over at his team. Haku chuckled at the silent cry for help that was on his whiskered partner's face, while Kurama merely gave Naruto a thumbs up, like Sun had the night before. Sasuke had seemed to recover from his flashback and had a smirk plastered on his face as he looked at his team leader. He looked around the lunchroom in mild amusement. I wonder if Coffee is back from their mission yet. That Naruto and Kurama can double date. I bet a certain bunny would love it if you asked her. Kurama punched his partner's shoulder. Funny, Uchiha. You're a real comedian. I think you and Velvet look great together, Ren offered with his own small, amused smile. I'm surrounded by wise guys, Kurama growled. He snapped a look at Blake while she chuckled at her fellow fauness's misfortune. Or maybe our resident kitten should take her monkey boy toy and the other two blondes out for a walk. Blake's smile fell and she glared at the glasses-wearing fauness as he smirked back at her. I think you're all getting ahead of yourself, Naruto said dryly as he finished off his lunch, and I think I'm going to go see if I can't figure out who the new teachers are. He stood up to clean up his lunch and yelped when something pinched his butt. A glare shot over to Yang, who grinned at him like a minx. You're very lucky I didn't throw my tray into the air, Naruto said with a light flush before he walked away. The rest of the table burst into snickers, and Bren slapped Nora's hand when she tried once more to steal the syrup for her plate of napkins. Young rested her hand on her chin as she leaned into the table and shamelessly admired his backside. Her grin was still plastered on her face. He's so fun to tease, Yang mused, but he's great in bed too. Ruby choked on her lunch and then glared at her laughing sister with a red face. Blake, Weiss, and Juniper did the same while the rest of Team Nox smirked or laughed at the comment. Yang just gave those who were glaring at her a victory sign. I know who you are. You're my girlfriend. Well, that's probably the most underwhelming description of all time. Hey, lots of ladies would be happy to be my girlfriend. What? What other woman do you even know? Oh, well, Griff had a sister. She seemed to like me. Yeah, she also seemed pretty easy. How did you know she was easy, Tex? Wait, you know what? Don't answer. It's better in my head. Naruto snorted from where he lounged on his bed, watching a video on his roll. I can't believe they thought I was going to go investigate the new teachers. I'm just going to sit here and chill while I watch some good old educational red versus blue revelation. Is that season 7 or season 8? Season 8, Naruto answered the other occupant of his bed. He snickered along with his companion when the sniper implied that he dealt with a certain hard organ on the male body. Naruto was content for another few seconds before he realized that he'd been sitting in his room alone, watching videos on his bed alone for the last 13 minutes. A weight landed on his shoulder and Naruto looked down to see a familiar shade of blonde atop the head of a familiar girl. Naruto looked from Yang to his team's bedroom door and then back at Yang before he arched the brow. How did you do that? Do what? Yang asked, particularly distracted by the most popular web series on Remnant. Naruto paused the video and closed the scroll as he sat up, sneaking to my team's room without me realizing it. I walked in, closed the door, and then climbed on the bed. You were just too distracted to notice. Yang replied bluntly with a smirk on her face. She sat up and met his gaze. You really didn't think I don't recognize the signs of someone skipping class? Well, I was hoping I did a good job of covering my bases, Naruto mumbled in disappointment. Yang arched a brow. You, investigating teachers to see who they are. Come on, Whisker Boy, you'll meet them when we're shuffling into their classes. Man, our friends are dumb, Naruto said with an amused smile on his face. In Ruby's defense, she's only 15 and has an attention disorder, I think. Yang mused. She shrugged him, and the others don't really care as long as they don't think you're running off to prank someone. Meh. Cardin still but hurt from the laxative I slipped into his protein shake last week, and all the teachers are too cool to really bother, Naruto said with a shrug of his own. And you haven't pranked us yet because? Yang finished. Naruto arched a brow. What do you mean? Of course I pranked you guys. I got sneezed on day one with the duct tape. Belle got the brunt of a dog whistle when I was trying to prank Kurma. Still need to apologize for that. Ruby lost some cookies to yours truly, and you, Naruto furrowed his brow. Give me a second. I know I did something to you. If only, Yang joked with a smile. Oh damn, I really haven't. No, wait. A few days ago, when we were in Belle, the size thing, Naruto smirked at her. Made you blush? Yang smirked back and climbed onto his lap, causing Naruto's smirk to slowly die down. Yes, you did, but you also raised a big question I want answered. I- is this really going to be a thing? Naruto asked as he sat back against his bed and let his hands rest on Yang's hips. I don't know, Yang said slightly. You tell me. I mean, I wouldn't exactly mind, but I thought we were just joking around, Naruto mumbled. Yang leaned in and her half-lidded lilac eyes stared into Naruto's blues. Games are for fun. Our games are fun and all, but they gotta end eventually. Hard to argue with that lot. Could you please stop moving your hips? Sorry, that happens sometimes. Naruto stared at her flatly, his face lightly flushed. It's welcomed, but it makes things difficult. What's there to think about? Yang asked with a grin. Point taken. Naruto grinned slightly before he let his hips press gently against hers. Yang grinned back as their hips meshed together. Her arms were loosely hanging over his shoulders, while Naruto's hands began to gently stroke her legs. The two blondes were so engrossed with one another that they didn't notice the door opening again. Okay, Naruto, fun's over. Next class is. Oh, damn, man. In our room? Sasuke clapped his hand over his eyes while the two broke from their kiss and looked at him. Geez, I'll never unsee that. Nightmares. I'm going to have nightmares. Sasuke rushed out of the room and slammed the door behind him. Naruto and Yang stared at the door in mild shock before they looked at each other with grins on their faces. Make out on his bed. It's like you read my mind. And you're sure of what you saw? Haku asked Sasuke while the raven-haired boy scrubbed water and soap into his eyes from a drinking fountain. The question of where the soap had come from was still unanswered, and Haku was more concerned with why he and Kurama had found Sasuke doing such and asked rather than the how that was bouncing around in Kurama's head. Yes, God, the burning. No, that's good. It means the image will be gone. Wow. This whole time I thought you were kidding about being afraid of Naruto procreating. Kurama said as he watched his partner nearly mutilate himself. You do know they were just kissing, right? Who was kissing? The leaderless Team Nox turned to see Velvet and her team walking up to them. The rabbit-eared girl blushed shyly under their gaze and ducked behind Yatsuhashi, who had a small smile on his face. Hey Vel, Kurama greeted with a nod. Fox, Yatsuhashi, Kurama. The giant older teen nodded back while the silent teen gave a small wave. What's all this about kissing? Coco asked with a smirk on her face. She looked around and pouted. Naru's still hiding from me. Is he still mad? He's probably more horny than he is mad, Kurama said with a grunt when Haku elbowed him. Coco caught it and her pout turned into a confused frown. What is that supposed to mean? Your adorable little brother has just doomed Remnant to endless hell, Sasuke grunted as he rubbed his eyes. I think it's gone now. What? Nothing, Coco? Haku said with a sigh. Naruto praying to Sasuke with Yang's help. Yang's that blonde girl with the big bust, right? Kako asked, recalling seeing the Buxman member of Team Ruby in passing. Her lips pursed. How close are they? Ow, my foot! Kurama is started to hop around with his hand on his foot after Haku stomped down on it. Whoops, I should really watch where I'm going. Excuses, Coco. My teammates and I need to have a quick conversation. Haku smiled at the older teens as he grabbed Kurama and Sasuke collars, pulling them with him around a corner. Once they were out of sight, Haku turned on his friends with a scowl. Are you two trying to get Yang killed? I think if anyone should be angry here, it's me, Kurama hissed as he gingerly set his foot down. You broke something. Get over yourself, Haku hissed back. He pointed behind them. You know how Coco gets. She is the Yang to Naruto's Ruby. Remember the time Russell brained Ruby with an apple? Yeah, and? Kurama asked. He grinned. Dipshit got his ass beat and stomped a picking on the squirt, not to mention the wave of pranks Naruto and I did. What do you think will happen to Yang when Coco finds out that she kissed Naruto? Guys, Sasuke held a finger up as Kurama and Haku glared daggers at each other. Who cares about that? They had that coming. You broke my foot. Guys, that's going to be the least of your concern if Ruby finds out that you were the reason Coco killed Yang because you told her that Yang and Naruto were dating. Guys, they aren't even dating yet. They've only just started to kiss and shit. Hey, idiots! What? Haku and Kurama snapped their glares over to Sasuke, only to pale when they realized Team Coffee was standing right behind the boy. Yasuhashi had Sasuke in one armed handlock, and Coco's aura, a very intimidating red, was visibly around her. Velvet was hiding behind Fox, who was a good distance away from his team leader. So, Coco cracked her knuckles and narrowed her eyes behind her sunglasses. Which of you is going to show me where your dorm room is? Wait, hold up, Naruto said as he pushed himself up and off of Yang while they were laid on Sasuke's bed. He looked down at his new girlfriend with mild confusion. Did you feel that? I was going to say something, but I kind of like the poke it gives. Really revs my engines, Yang said with a wink. Hot, but I could have sworn I just had a tingle go down my spine. Yang grinned at him and interlocked her fingers behind his neck. Good to know I have that effect on you. No, not that kind of tingle, Naruto said with a frown. He pursed his lips and looked around the room with his brows furrowed together. Like an overwhelming sense of doom and despair just overcame me. It's called a relationship, Whisker Boy. Now stop being so negative around it and get back down here. Yang pulled Naruto into another kiss before he could say anything else. Just as their new round of second base started up, there was a knock at the door. Their kiss broke again, and Yang glared at Naruto. If you get up to get that, I will break your nuts. I was stopping for air. That's all. Smart boy. Right. Why can't everyone else see? There was another knock, and the two blondes each lifted one hand to flip it off, all the while still kissing and petting each other heavily. Yang pushed Naruto over and startled him, her blonde locks curling over him, and the both of them grinning at each other. They resumed their petting, their tongue-used kissing, and pretty much barely managing to stay properly dressed. Both were still in their respective school uniform when this relationship began. Yang's attire might have been a huge factor in Naruto's quick decision, but that's besides the point. The new couple were thus shocked, but did not move when the door was broken down by Kurama's body. The Faunus groaned from where he lay on the specially crafted entryway and let out a grunt when a sharp heel stepped onto his back over him. Naruto, what's this I hear about? Coco's question trailed off as she took in the sight of her adopted baby brother being straddled by the buxom blonde she'd seen in passing. Her hands curled into a tight fist, and her aura began to flare lightly. You. Oh, hi, Coco. Naruto gave her a weak smile and wave. He looked at Yang, then back at Coco. I can explain. Then explain it, Naruto. Coco gave him a sweet smile that promised nothing but pain if he tried to lie. This is exactly what it looks like. Coco smiled wider. Do you know what it looks like? Like I am checking his blood pressure, Yang said simply. Team Coffee and the rest of Team Nox, who were held by their necks in Yatsuhashi's massive arms, aside from Kurama on the ground, and even Naruto looked at her in disbelief. Yang sat back slightly and smiled at the older teen. By straddling him? Coco asked in mild disbelief, crossed with barely contained fury, while Fox palmed his face. It's very effective. Gets an accurate reading every time. Naruto looked up at the ceiling with a frown. Why must you take away all of my nice things? Naruto, go outside. Coco held her hand out while Naruto tried to get out from under his new girlfriend, though Yang kept him pinned in place. Velvet, my bag, please. Coco, pretty sure you're not supposed to use your weapons inside, Velvet said, and then looked down at her fellow faunus. And I think Kurma needs air. Velvet, sweetie, don't argue with me right now. Naruto, move. Coco, believe me. I'm trying. Naruto returned as he tried to push Yang off. Geez, woman, your legs are strong. Lesser men's hips have been broken, Yang said with a smile. She turned to her whiskered boyfriend and tapped his nose. You stay right there and I'll be back to finish up in a second. You'll finish up all right, Coco grumbled. Velvet! Velvet winced and handed Coco her bag before she ran back to hide behind Yatsuhashi. Fox doing the same. The self-proclaimed older sister flicked her wrist and the bag unfolded into a minigun. Yang slid off Naruto's lap and reached into her school's jacket pocket to pull her gauntlets on, as the two teen girls had a stare of epic proportions. Naruto, far too afraid to move for his own safety, looked from Yang to Coco and then up at the ceiling. Why do you hate me? End of chapter 9.